Now, with Nadine.
In the studio today is a dear friend of mine, Nick Lowery, who proudly flaunts a very impressive ring. He's an Arizona favorite with a heart that will always bleed Chiefs red. Today we're talking all the things, his life, his journey on and off the field, and his incredible passion for paying it forward. It's always a treat when I get a friend in studio, Nick.
It's a treat to see how you have continued to blossom since your TV career. And frankly, what we need today in this world are courageous storytellers, because a lot of the best stories, indeed perhaps not good news stories, but really important stories, need to be told. And so all the storytellers, we need you telling stories.
Well, Nick, you know how much I love you and appreciate you all throughout the years. You are such a staple of Arizona, but really, you know, around the country and around the globe, which we're going to talk to. But before we begin, we got to talk about this vibe, because from the sunnies to the rings to the necklace to the shoes that people can't see, which is Chiefs red, because I think you maybe played for them at some point in your life. Can you talk about what you're wearing and
I wore the red.
Can you bend that like that? I mean, that's a good bend. It's very impressive.
Very impressive.
Yes. Okay, talk about the bling.
Well, especially on a podcast with Nadine Lowery, this is something I designed with Michelle Spenichari, who's from Philly, and I give it away to close friends. Patrick Mahomes' mom has it.
Randy, I just interviewed her.
You did?
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
Yes.
And she's pretty cute, too.
She's super cute.
She flirts really well. She's a good flirter.
Yeah.
And I spent about half an hour with her right after a game 2 years ago with Russell Hitchcock, the lead singer for Air Supply, with his wife Carrie, who is a huge Chiefs fan. So, but also at the Chiefs-Cardinals game a couple months ago, on the sidelines with Patrick Mahomes Sr., he looked at this and goes, I need to have one, but I don't want the 8, which is my number. I want number 15. So he's getting one of these. But we sell it for $350, and it goes to clothing for our Champions for the Homeless program, which is coming out soon on Thanksgiving. And it provides clothing and flowers and gift certificates, incredible music and haircutters, et cetera, for 1,000 what I call homeless and brothers and sisters at St. Vincent de Paul.
Yeah, that's something you started, and we're going to dive into it. But, you know, we have to talk about what's on your finger. At one time in your life, that ring. Can you kind of show the camera? Because it says something on it that's quite impressive about a Super Bowl. Walk us through that moment in your life.
Well, first of all, to be really clear, the closest I got was with a guy named, Joe Montana.
Yes.
In the AFC Championship game, when another guy named Bruce Smith, who's also a friend, one of the great pass rushers of all time, gave Joe his worst concussion ever. Otherwise, we might have gone to the Super Bowl and we might have beaten Dallas in a way that Buffalo couldn't. But this was offered to me as the all-time score for the Chiefs after we waited 50 years. And that story, by the way, is a good one because Harris Faulkner, the famous Harris Faulkner from Fox News nationally, was the anchor for Fox in Kansas City. And we went on some dates together, and just a good friend, longtime friend, she said, would you like to go to the Super Bowl with me? I already had 2 tickets, so I sold those. I sat with her and watched us win our first Super Bowl in 50 years, and this represents that.
And so this ring, all-time score.
And I'm the all-time scorer. That helps.
Still?
Still, and will be hopefully for a while.
Forever. I mean, that's incredible. Looking back at your football career, you know, what does that mean to you?
Well, I try to express that in my book, which is coming out now, which is all about how rejections and failures and mistakes and missed field goals in our lives teach us, if we set life up that way, to make us better. And in the 2 years where I tried out with 8 NFL teams 11 times, I got from being scared to death in my first game with then the Patriots on national TV to being able to beat out the greatest kicker in the history of the game, Jan Stenerud. And I gave up a wonderful job as one of the only non-attorneys on the U.S. Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee working for Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon on aviation safety and aviation deregulation, because I thought, 12th time, Chiefs are going to give me a $2,500 bonus, which I'd never had before, which is nothing now, but I just felt I owed it to myself to try one more time, and then I played 18 years and
18
set
years.
the record for most accuracy, and it just teaches us that we can transform. A lot of people talk about 1 month.
Yeah.
You can turn around I don't know about 1 month, but in 2 years, with dedication, with focus, with a lot of persistence, unbelievable things can be achieved.
Unbelievable. And I want to talk about the book, but before we even go there, you have so much ties to the Chiefs, but you also have your heart in Arizona. This is home to you.
Mm-hmm. I didn't wear sunglasses in Kansas City. I'll take this out
Right.
now, but I wanted to just because I like it.
Donovan McNabb says you can't shovel sunshine. That's what he always says about living in Arizona.
There
You
you go.
can't shovel it.
This is Saji International, really great glasses.
Yeah.
I love them. But I've moved here. I've been here now. This is the beginning of my 30th year.
30th year.
And I came out here for the Super Bowl in '96, and they put me up at the Hyatt at Gainey Ranch, which is awesome.
Yep.
And I walked out on the balcony. It was 75 degrees on February 3rd, orange blossoms in the air. And I just thought, I think I'm going to look. And I've lived in that area around Gainey Ranch, McCormick Ranch the whole time. And then after my 8th year, a guy named Muhammad Ali moved in next door to me in Cheney
Wow.
Estates. And so it's been a blessing living here. I kept my house in Kansas City till 15 years ago, but I go back there a lot anyway for games and events. But this has been my home, and I've loved it. And I get to meet great people like you and try to make a difference with Native Americans and
Yes, you
in
do.
particular now with the homeless.
Were you friends with Muhammad Ali?
I was. I was the only non-family member at his 74th and final birthday party.
Wow.
And my friend, artist Ludwig, who studied with Andy Warhol, and his wife Lauren, who was the head of the New Jersey Art Commission for a long time, he did a set of paintings of Marilyn Monroe, which was in the Marilyn Monroe Museum. He did one of cheeseburgers and hamburgers, which I would have gained 50 pounds if I kept those in my house because it was just so juicy looking. But he also did butterflies. And if you remember, the most famous of all the brilliant poems and verses that Muhammad had was float like a bee. Excuse me, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So I had a painting made for Lonnie, his wife, and Muhammad of 2 butterflies, one for Lonnie, one for him. And I have a picture of him eating a Butterfinger. He loved Butterfinger candy bars, and looking at this at his 74th wedding. But I drove Muhammad to the NBA All-Star game in 2009. I sat a couple rows behind him and Beyonce and Jay-Z, and I've got a great story about that. Took him to a Dodgers and Kansas City Royals game in Surprise. Amazing story there, which I'm happy to share. But I really believe that if Parkinson's had not limited his ability, his absolutely world-class ability to evoke and speak and inspire, he could have helped bring Muslims and Jews and Christians together and unite us in a way we've really needed the last few years.
I do want to talk about that because that's something you're extremely passionate about. I want to talk about the book, but I can't let that go without you sharing either Beyonce's story or the other story you were referring to.
Well, the Beyonce story is great because Jay-Z's sitting next to her right, and then it's Muhammad's best friend, who's a photographer for Sports Illustrated, who passed away a few years ago, and Muhammad. So Jay-Z's got his back to Beyonce. This is 2009, so she's really pretty, but she was really pretty and young then, and he's kind of ignoring her. And then at halftime, he's out on the court, and I have a picture. Everybody go to my Facebook page, Nick Lowery, Nick the Kick, and if you scroll down the albums, there's one with the NBA All-Star players and Muhammad, and Jay-Z's on the court with a basketball like that, and he's still got his back to her, and she told me, I went over to her, and she said, he's kind of ignoring me. How are you? And we had a nice little conversation, and we laughed, went back to my seat, and after a few minutes, I looked, and she caught my eye, and this is the picture that I took because she's basically looking at me going like this.
The eye roll.
And I'm like, have my children. I love you. So that was cool. And I will say, she was so down to earth.
Yeah.
She looked me right in the eye, calm, at peace with herself. And I'm guessing she's pretty much still that way. The great celebrities I've been lucky to meet, like Russell Hitchcock,
Yeah.
Joe Montana, you name it. They are so at peace and at comfort with who they are. Yeah.
They're just people.
They're just people, just like the great people in the world are just people. They're consistent, whether they're by themselves, whether they're in front of a million people, or whether they're just with a couple friends.
It's so true. What is the name of your book?
It's got a great name. It's called Naked and Alone with 80,000 People.
Okay, so we're going to dissect that for a second. Naked and Alone with 80,000 people.
Yep.
Were you ever naked and alone with 80,000 people?
I was emotionally vulnerable and naked in the sense that as a kicker in the NFL, which is the single most pressured position per square second of any position of any sport there is.
100%.
Managing yourself is really, really important. As you're running on the field, especially early in my career.
Did you get nervous?
Of course. And you're nervous in different ways. The more you prepare, the more you stay within that zone. I mean, think of the gymnasts that have to stick that balance beam, right?
Right.
And what are they thinking? Because there's no room for error. But I had many times where one of the voices, kind of schizophrenic in a way, right, is, what are you doing? This is the scariest thing ever. And that's how my book begins.
Yeah.
And then if you prepared yourself for these moments of truth, whether it's being on air or whether it's, saying something that's really important at the right time in front of the right people to help bring about change, to be a good leader, or maybe it's just to say the right thing to your child who's really pissed you off.
Right.
How do you find the right words so that they learn and they learn the right lessons? So running on the field for me, that other voice would take over and say, just stick with your discipline.
Is that what you were thinking? Was there a song in your head? Was someone whispering in your ear?
Well, this is another thing. Thank you. Great question. Why you're great as a reporter is, as I'm approaching the ball, now it's snap back in 1.27 seconds. It's snap back 8 yards. It's caught, put down, and spun in 0.2 tenths of a second. And you have literally under 0.2 tenths of a second, probably 0.1 tenth of a second when the ball's not spinning, to see it and kick it through these tiny little tweezers, which look wide on TV, but
they're not as wide as it seems.
So managing that is incredibly important. And you have 11 people paid almost $5 million each, if not more, to block your kick 21 feet away. So it's not just about accuracy; it's about getting it over those very large people who can jump 40 inches in the air. But that's also a great analogy for all these moments of truth in our lives. And how do we prepare for them, not only when we make the big kicks in our lives, but also how do we manage our success? All those things are daily challenges. You just notice the people that are celebrities that seem to manage it really well, that seem to be consistent.
It's really easy to celebrate, a win or a success. How did you navigate when there was a loss, when there was something missed, when all this pressure was weighing on you?
They talk about baseball players. 300 baseball players, a great player, but he strikes out or doesn't get a hit 70% of the time. For me, it was 80% success. The old record was barely 70%, so I took it to a new level.
That's a huge success rate.
But that means every fifth kick, you're not making it. So being able to manage that, what did I do wrong, get ready for the next one, and not let it just severely impact your focus. So there's an interesting thing. You can call it a Buddhist thing, you can call it a Stoic thing, but it is, we're only in control of right now. That's the only thing, ourselves and how we behave, how we interpret our challenges right now. So you can't let it haunt you. Learn and then move on. My friend Gary Spaney, All-American linebacker at K-State, who was a phenomenal linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, he'd just say basically flush it down your mental toilet, which is a not pretty way to put it, but it really is. You have to learn to get ready for the next one, or else the chances of missing the next one go up exponentially as well. So kicking is a great analogy for how we manage our thought, how we manage our brains. And today, because of this thing, we are conditioned at a level that even the great psychologists, Abraham Maslow and I guess you could say Freud, but all of the ones that look at operant conditioning and all the repetitive
the phone
affirmations, we suddenly get into these really bad habits where we can only manage our success and our focus for a few seconds, which is sad.
Yes. It's sad. The book, are they real life accounts? Are they stories? Are they takeaways? Is it your life? Are we going to get the full thing unfiltered?
It's not a boring, on January 2nd and then on January 3rd. It is anecdotes and signposts and amazing
It's raw.
stories. But I mean, I had such a different upbringing. My dad was, I only found out after he died at his funeral that he wasn't just senior CIA. My dad was chief of station for the CIA in London. So before you think about CIA and murdering people, all that thing, my dad was a scholar. He was an expert on Russia and Eastern Europe. And he was during the height of the Cold War, the late 60s and then early 70s, he was the man. And he would meet with MI5 and MI6 when we lived in London.
So you lived in London.
We lived in London, and my mother loved that. My mother grew up in Cairo, Egypt. Her father was a British diplomat who helped found the Bank of Egypt, and then he was killed in a plane crash when she was 14. So she moves back to England and is in the first full class of women at Oxford. Wow. And what's cool about it is how unusual the upbringing I've had is with a family of two sets of twins, a twin sister and two older twin brothers, is my mother dealing with the bombing of London, and speaking the best German in England, so being sent at the end of the war to question Hitler's record keepers in Berlin and Minden. And she said what was interesting was here these people had lost many family members and friends, and yet they were falling over themselves to take care of Hazel Bray, my mother, who is now Hazel Lowery. And then I found out 10 years after she died from a family friend who was a minister at Dartmouth, who I introduced her to, who also went to Oxford about 20 years after her, Father David McElhenney. He confided in us something she told him to keep a secret, but he felt it was time to let us know. My mother was sent to document the death camps before the end of the war in Dachau, which is one of the worst death camps near Munich, Germany, where I was born.
You were born in Munich.
And so I'm actually going back to Munich for a related purpose, dealing with fighting anti-Semitism and racism and hate through something called Project Max. So all these things, to me, I love it. If we can integrate our lives to honor, to honor the people that gave us life and inspired us, as my mother and father did, there's nothing better.
You were close to them, Nick.
Absolutely.
You were close to your parents.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I adored my parents. They were married 57 years. Hazel.
57 years.
Until my mother passed away and my dad died a couple years later. But I was extremely lucky to have parents that loved each other. They never swore. You know, my mother's worst swear word was, it wasn't a word, it was a phrase, but she got our attention without having to swear. It was, God's flaming teeth.
I'm going to start using that, but my kids will laugh.
It.
I don't know if I could do that. God's flaming teeth.
God's flaming teeth.
But I laugh when I'm doing it. My kids would laugh at me. But did you listen to her? Did that mean she was like meaning business when she said that?
Yeah.
You were scared.
Oh, yeah.
It was time.
We knew something was up.
Wow. I look at you, Nick, you know, immensely successful, a strong man, someone who is such a good example for young kids, especially young boys. But I also see you tearing up when you talk about your mother. And as a mom, I can only pray that my kids would feel that way towards me at some point. You know, growing up, did you say, like, I want to grow up to be in the NFL? Like, you had a mom doing this, you had a dad doing CIA. Like,
that's
was
why you
that
got to
a
read the
dream?
book, because
I want to give me a hint. Give me a tease.
I'll give you a hint. I mean, just think about how bizarre this is. Muhammad Ali was my next door neighbor till he died for 14 years. Before that, and you can look this up, New York Times, Justice Byron White, Nick Lowery, and then the writer is a guy named Ira Berkow, Berkow, in the New York Times. And it's when Justice Byron White died. Why? Because on the day that we moved into 6803 Hampshire Road in McLean, Virginia in 1962, and I was just this big, a guy named Justice Byron White moved in next door, 6801 Hampshire Road, with his wife Marion Stearns. And this guy had just been approved by the U.S. Senate as the next Supreme Court Justice to John F. Kennedy. And this guy just happened to be the greatest football player in the land when he played at the University of Colorado. And he just happened in the only 3 years he played in the NFL, to lead the NFL in rushing as a rookie for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then 2 years later, to lead the Detroit Lions and the NFL in rushing a second time. The same year, Justice Byron White finished number one at Yale Law School. So I've been incredibly spoiled with inspiring people next door neighbors, serendipity. And hopefully we just look at those things and go, what's God trying to teach me? What are these things supposed to help me with? And of course, having a guy that was one of the great football players of all time, who happened to be a remarkably brilliant scholar as well and Supreme Court justice, is what can I do? Well, maybe I should think I could make it in the NFL. And I think kids today, one of my great inspirations, and I'm sure all of us hopefully try to do this in our own way, is how can I inspire other people without having Muhammad Ali, without having Byron White next door? How can we help them see windows open, doors open that might not have been there before, and have the aspiration, the ambition to think of a godly and inspiring life that helps others and is connected to our God-given gifts.
Would you say, I do want to talk, it's Project Max, right?
Yes.
What is Project Max for people who don't know?
If you look up Project Max Club, it is through sport, dedicated through sport to end racism, anti-Semitism, hate, and intolerance. It was founded by my friend Eric Rubin, who went with me to Poland to bring 100 Ukrainian Jewish refugees from Poland to Israel on behalf of Christians United for Israel, with a guy named Sean Alexander, a wonderful man who led the NFL in rushing and was had the most touchdowns in NFL MVP back in 2005, 2006, with his 6 months pregnant wife coming with him, who was pregnant with their 13th child.
Wow, that's a lot.
And Jay Feely, who's running for Congress, so vote for Jay Feely, he's a good man. And we were given the full tour of Auschwitz and Birkenau and the death camps and the Warsaw Ghetto and the Krakow Ghetto, and then we were able to give this wonderful support to 100 Ukrainian Jewish refugees. There are 10 million refugees from Ukraine in Poland, which would be like the United States having 60 million refugees. So think about that. And we were then given a tour of Jerusalem and the Wailing Wall and the Sea of Galilee and the Golan Heights, and it really inspired me. And Eric and I connected then, and we just thought, what else can we do? So to answer your question a little bit more, Project Max has probably 40 NBA players and about 15 NFL players, and that will be growing, and some soccer players, so it's hopefully worldwide. Eric led a group that spoke at Parliament that was not just Israeli Jews, but Israeli Arabs.
Beautiful. Because
of this issue with Muslims in the world and whether we can tolerate living and loving each other and agreeing that everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves dignity.
Would you say a lot of your passion towards something like Project Max and being immersed in this is from your mom a little bit, like living out what she had to do in a way?
I think certainly I look at that as an extension of my purpose.
Right.
But I think of my father, being a reconnaissance pilot in a tiny, unarmored Piper Cub in Germany the last 6 months of the war for General Patton, my favorite general in World War II. If you haven't seen Patton, the movie with George C. Scott, you've got to see it. It's amazing. Okay. But, he was flying and calling in huge shells right over himself and lost two of his comrades, his co-pilots, in other reconnaissance planes because they were willing to risk their lives to help win the war. And then my father, goes back and sees this need for intelligence, meaning the edge that we absolutely needed, without which we may not have won World War II. And, then goes back on the GI Bill to Stanford and studies and applies and is accepted to the Fulbright Scholars Program and to the CIA. And he left the CIA in 1975. He didn't like the way President Nixon was politicizing it with, you might remember, with Watergate. But he was a historian, and that's in my blood as well. So looking at history and looking at a time that we live in today where people have to stand up against very powerful forces and say, that's not right, and this is right.
Absolutely.
And make sure that's clear. That's why I began by saying that storytellers like yourself are so important today to have the courage and the ethics to tell the whole story.
And you're going back to Gaza.
So Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, his assistant Secretary of State, has invited me to go to Gaza, where Marco Rubio was. And I just think one of those stories, speaking of the whole story, is what's happening where we see all of this unattended food or not getting it to people that are starving. And then you see these clips of 40 huge trucks with food being commandeered by Hamas. And what's happened in between? Why was it so easy for them? And obviously, they've got guns. So what is the process that we can somehow change so that the food does get to the children and the mothers and the people of Gaza?
You also toured what happened in Gaza.
Well, I toured right there on the border
Yes.
with the kibbutz that was overrun,
Right, the kibbutz.
with the film festival,
Yes.
where 367 people were murdered. They're
Yes.
all beautiful human beings.
Yes.
And instead of tombstones, it's 5-6 foot tall stakes with pictures in color of these beautiful people whose lives were taken in the worst kind of way. And we were shown the base that was overtaken,
you were.
and a woman named Naama Levy was taken.
Yep.
And when I was there with Tony Richardson, my Chiefs teammate, we both played 3 years with the Jets. He's with NFL Legends now, which is great. And he came with me, and we promised Naama's father and her brother, when she was still in captivity and we didn't know if she was still alive, that we would fight for her release. And I was advocating for her. And 2 weeks later, she was released alive. And what's really moving is that she was an advocate for Palestinian-Israeli
Yes, she was.
understanding. And a beautiful young lady. She was a semi-triathlete, and we talked about this in a place in Tel Aviv called Hostage Square. And they have a makeshift tunnel there so you can experience to some degree what that's like. And then they have, at that point, this is now January 2nd, they have a table, a dining room table with chairs on either side, each chair representing one of the more than 100 hostages. And each family could decorate the chair of their son or daughter or brother or sister. And really powerful stuff. And I'm just glad to be doing my part. And we have more to do. But the real truth is that Hamas has never said anything compromising their commitment to wiping out all Jews and probably Christians.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's a harsh reality, and until that changes, what alternative is there but to hope and work that they are replaced by people that, again, honor the dignity of all human beings. That's the only way that Gaza is going to be reborn.
I want to ask you, even though I know the answer, are you scared to be vocal?
No, I mean, it's why I'm here on this earth, you know? So, I mean, once again, the storytellers tell the truth, advocate for and recognize the dignity of all people. And Jesus certainly believed that whether you were a prostitute or a tax collector, that you were still worthy.
Right.
And so everyone is worthy of a life of meaning and of being loved and loving. And it's not an easy thing to love people that want to kill you.
And speaking of love, you created a very strong initiative here in the state of Arizona. You don't call them you call them your homeless brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. What is it that you started?
Well, I think the principles still apply, which is everyone deserves dignity. And so I'll give you a quick statistic. And I want to say first and foremost that St. Vincent de Paul is the best run nonprofit in the Southwest, if not anywhere. I worked in the White House for President H.W. Bush in '89 on the Points of Light Foundation, and for Clinton on AmeriCorps. I met a lot of national CEOs. I have a master's from Harvard in public administration.
When did you have time to do all of this? I thought
was
you were playing football.
I know. Well, this is after my football career.
I'm so confused.
But
You're
you
only
know,
25.
I'm only 25, just like you.
Right,
So,
exactly.
but they run a great and tight ship, and they're very compassionate. One of the things they say is there's no difference between the giver and the receiver. And if you get that, that is to me one of the most fundamental values of life, as opposed to I'm so great that I'm giving to you and I'm making a donation, etc. And for athletes that are cultivated in a narcissistic culture, that's a really good lesson to remind ourselves that, yeah, there but for the grace of God, go I. So helping people that have found themselves homeless, the stat I will give you is, this is directly from St. Vincent de Paul, is more than 7,000 people have been evicted every single month for 36 straight months. If you multiply that out, that's over 260,000 evictions, and 4 people per eviction means more than 1 million people in Phoenix, a town of 5 million, have found themselves at least temporarily homeless. So for every one person leaving homelessness, 2 are entering, if not more. And so it's a beautiful thing on Thanksgiving.
Hold on, tell us what you started. What is your foundation called?
Well, my foundation is called Nick Lowery Youth Foundation, but the only program of it now, I did do 20 years of leadership training for Native American kids. That's another story. And that was a blessing, and I still support Native American youth, absolutely, because they're in their own way homeless because they've lost their original lands most of the time, find themselves on reservations and away from their sacred lands. But with the homeless, to me, it is simply doing the work that we have to do to let people know they're not forgotten.
Champions for the Homeless.
Champions for the Homeless.
And what is it?
And we serve, on average, 1,000 homeless brothers and sisters at St. Vincent de Paul in downtown Phoenix. We provide more than 1,000 pairs of underwear, 1,000 pairs of socks, thousands of T-shirts, clothing, Spanx, everything that people might need, even women's bras. I was given a compliment at our last summer, what we call Christmas in July, because I did a good job apparently getting a good variance of sizes for women's bras, because if you're on the street and you don't want a wire bra, and you want something that's comfortable, but all those sorts of bits of clothing, and then we give away 1,000 $5 gift certificates to McDonald's and Starbucks. We give away 1,000 flowers. Thank you, Phoenix Flower Shops, for helping us out. And then we give away close to 100 haircuts and
making them
chiropractic
feel seen.
adjustments.
They're feeling seen.
So we feel like, to me, it's the way I describe it is we're drowning them in a benign way, with a sense of being loved and that they're not forgotten. And you see people that have gotten everything, they've had everything taken away, still with this grace that I wish I had. That they know somehow they have a peace that can't be taken away.
And they're still people.
And for those that are fighting it, I'm going to guess 5 to 10% have some serious mental health issues and some addiction issues, but far less than you would expect. I call it really, for the most part, situational mental illness, because if you and I were on the street for a year, we'd probably have some issues too.
Go crazy.
So, and then when people see you look them in the eye with no judgment, with love, just saying, how you doing, what's going on, there is something really beautiful that happens. And I feel so grateful to be able to do that. And we tell our volunteers, I get emotional talking about it, but we tell our volunteers, giving away food, giving away clothing, giving away gift certificates, flowers, those are great. But the most important thing you do, and we do, is look that person right in the eye and say, there's no difference between you and me. We're the same. And you're loved, you're seen, you're not forgotten. And when that's done, not only by one volunteer, but by 20 or 30 or 40 that they meet, there is this miraculous softening of that outer shell that's been hardened and crystallized by the heat and by the anonymity they suffer through, and the crudeness of life on the street. And suddenly they soften up and say, there's still hope. And that, I can't put a measuring stick on that. I just know it's what life's all about. So
beautifully said.
When I'm driving home from Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or in the summer, especially those days like Thanksgiving, he said, that's Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving.
I'll eat my turkey and watch some football, but not before that reminds me of what's really Thanksgiving.
And let's keep in mind, you're there, but you're also bringing a lot of your buddies that are
Thank you. My buddies, Darryl Clack, Lionel Manuel won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants, Michael Bankston, the Griffin family, Ray Perkins, just all these wonderful guys that just care and they just show up.
They just show up.
And I asked them to wear their jerseys. But once again, it's that message that, yeah, you may think of me as an NFL player, but I hope you think of me as somebody that just cares.
Sure.
And they show up all the time, every time. And then we have hundreds of volunteers, amazing volunteers. My chairman, Heather Jordan Farr, Al Gonzalez, they've been there forever. His wife, Andrea, my friend Greg Fallman, just so many, Teresa Montgomery, all these wonderful people, Bethany, Love, Hannah, people that really have their hearts in the right place. And I don't think you can just say, I have my heart in the right place. You got to put it in the right place.
Absolutely.
Go down to a shelter, be there in that somewhat uncomfortable situation, realize you're helping someone else feel comfortable because you're willing to be temporarily uncomfortable. And then you get comfortable with it because it feels like the best stuff ever.
Yeah.
The most humane stuff ever. And I think today, with going back to this, we're in our little compartmentalized lives where if we're not careful, we only meet with and talk with people that agree 100% as we do and have the same lives as we do.
Sure.
And you're not growing then. You need to challenge yourself to break through your own limitations, to make sure that what you believe really does last and isn't just about what happens inside your little house.
Okay, can I ask you a few quick questions?
Yes.
I'm gonna shoot them at you. Okay, the first one is, the first thing that comes to mind, your favorite memory from playing football. First thing that comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind, well, there are really two. One is my first field goals for the Chiefs, having replaced Jan Stenerud, at that point the greatest kicker in the history of the game, one of my idols, and beat him out head to head. People think I followed him. No, I beat him out. I had to uncompete. And then all the Kansas City people, because Jan represented the Super Bowl team, was who is this imposter? And I go out there, my very first field goal for the Chiefs is a 50-yarder, which it looks easy today. The balls are broken in, everybody, by the way, in the way they weren't back then. So imagine a baseball mitt that's not broken in. That's how much harder it is to kick a new ball versus one broken in. And then I had a 57-yarder later in the game.
Wow.
So that was a Chiefs record, broke Jan's record for longest field goal, third longest kick in NFL history, and first time ever 2 50-yarders in a game. So I said, I'm here. I deserve to be here. And that sense of power, breaking through your own limitations. And the second one is we're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs in overtime with a guy named Joe Montana on the Kansas City Chiefs, and Marcus Allen and Derek Thomas and Neil Smith and Emil Harry and all these other great players, J.J. Burton, who lives here in Phoenix, AJJ number 88. And I had to hit a field goal in overtime to win the game, and it wasn't me that won it, but provide the points. Everybody else did their part, but to hit that field goal was incredibly cold. And to look up and see almost 80,000 people standing up all in red, like when they do the wave. So imagine that wave is all red.
Yeah.
And it's not just doing the wave, it is we won, and turning around and then seeing all my teammates running at me and just celebrating.
That's a moment.
I'll never forget that.
I'll never forget it.
And so there's so many memories that I'm lucky enough to have had.
Kansas City barbecue or the Arizona food scene? You got to choose one.
Kansas City barbecue.
Kansas City barbecue.
Arizona food scene, Arizona itself, just like Kansas City, frankly, they're both maturing as great places to live. Kansas City really has done a lot. Patrick Mahomes at Super Bowls probably didn't hurt, but it's become a more diverse city, as is Phoenix, becoming more diverse. I think celebrating the culture and the roots of the cultural communities here is really important. There's I wrote a speech, my only speech in the U.S. Senate for Senator John Chafee was written about James Roush, who was on the cover of Time magazine before you were born, because you're only 25. Exactly. This is back in about 1980. And it was
before I was born.
Yes,
1980
yes.
was.
And He did Faneuil Hall in Boston. He did Lincoln Center in New York. He did the Arch in the downtown area, which unfortunately has not been replicated in St. Louis. But his whole thing was all of these areas where he really said, let's focus on the existing cultural roots of a community and let that speak to itself. And making a place worth living, people will come, as opposed to government, spend a bunch of money and maybe people will come. No, celebrate people, celebrate their choices, celebrate their dance, their music, their color, their fashion, their architecture. And you make a place worth living and people are going to come. Your
favorite player to watch this season? Who do you love watching?
Well, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable. I love watching him. That's the easy choice. I hope our offensive line protects him a bit more than we did Friday night. But he's not only a great player, he's the real deal. He is such a good human being.
Yes, he is.
And so I celebrate him and how he's handled it. Again, how he's handled his fame. He's the same person, whether he's on the golf course with a bunch of friends, including one of my friends, Steve Willis, or in front of millions of people. He has great faith, but he's fundamentally humble. I think growing up with a dad who played 12 years in Major League Baseball probably helped.
Baseball.
And don't forget his mom. She on the back of her jersey it says quarterback producer, and she helped him.
She's something else.
She's something else. She's much more dynamic, high rev personality, and then Patrick Mahomes Sr., who I saw a couple weeks ago, he's going to be getting one of these. He's the low, what I call blue burning flame. So you're up, you're ready, but you're calm. And Patrick has that ability to stay calm under tremendous pressure.
Bucket list. What's on your bucket list?
Well, bucket list would really be if I could do anything to help change Gaza into a place where everyone feels loved and safe. And that's virtually an impossible dream, but if you don't start there, how do you end there? And also to restore the community of Majd el-Shams, which is an Arab Druze community right near on the Golan Heights, right near Syria, where 12 of their 10 and 11-year-olds were blown up on a soccer field. And I hear from my friend Salah, whose son Juan wasn't blown up, but he was hurt. And there's his best friend blown in half, still alive. Imagine running up to him, he's only 20 feet away, and holding him, knowing, as he does, he's going to die. And how that felt to him, his own life and purpose flowing out of him. And so I try to encourage him and his mother. You can't imagine what that kind of suffering's about. And watching their Druze brothers and sisters in Syria being massacred, as has been happening.
So sad.
So it's not your up and down wonderful story about just sports. It's the real world, but providing hope for people, fighting for the underdog. Those are the things I love doing. Bucket list thing. Oh gosh, another safari in Africa. Got to have my own private island in the Caribbean.
Can I come?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Best advice you ever got?
Well, my favorite quote, I wrote this in the speech back in 1991. It's not the brightness of the spotlight on you. It's the intensity of the light within you. And that's really what it's all about. And you know people that have it. You know people that need it. And, being consistent. And God gives us this amazing biochemistry that when we're aligned with our gifts and we do something about it on a regular basis, our intuition, our insight, our wisdom, much more important than intelligence, increases, and we get even better at it. And that's what I love. That, to me, is the bucket list. Keep doing what I love doing, and hope others find that treasure.
When you speak, you see your soul. You are one of the most authentic people I've ever met, and I've had the honor of knowing and the honor of interviewing. So thank you. Where can people get more information about the book? Do you want to point people towards Instagram? Because I know you're very active there and making a lot of announcements.
Nick Lowery 88, NickLowery 88. 8 was taken, that's my number, but somebody took 8, so I took 88. And then Nick Lowery, NickLowery.com, and you'll see a picture of the book,
Right.
and you can get a sneak peek of about 10, 15 pages of it, it's pretty cool stuff.
What's your second favorite team?
Well,
Because I know there's the bias with the Chiefs.
well,
I get it.
I played with the Jets, but
Okay.
also, frankly, the Washington Redskins, who are now the Washington Commanders. But I actually kicked 2 field goals in the preseason for them the year before I made it in Kansas City. And I grew up as a Redskins fan with Larry Brown and Sonny Jurgensen, who I think he's in the Hall of Fame, but I think still one of the most underrated football players of all time. And the George Allen Redskins back then, when they were perennial losers, and George Allen, what they called the Over the Hill Gang, went to the Super Bowl without Sonny, who was injured, unfortunately. But the Jets, I wish them the best. They've had sort of a black cloud following them. Hopefully, they'll be a little better. I'm happy to see that the Cardinals have a good coach now. They seem to be better coached.
He's great.
And they may make the playoffs this year. Who knows?
Who knows? Is there anything else you want to add, Mr. Nick Lowery?
Well, thank you, first of all. The storytellers. If you ever want to be a storyteller, be a storyteller. Get stories out there that need to be told. Hold people accountable with dignity, but be clear about what's really happening. Those are things that are really important. In this era of AI, artificial intelligence, it's going to be harder and harder to tell
Yes,
what
it
the
is.
truth is
What's real.
and what isn't. So I guess that's the most important thing. Just keep asking yourself, what is my purpose in this world? What are my gifts? And align those babies and stick with it. And like I said, in 2 years, maybe a month, but in 2 years, the personal growth that you can enjoy as a kid, whether you're 10 years old or whether you're an adult and you're 70, is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And, I must mention, we met for coffee a few weeks ago. And, usually you meet for coffee for like a half an hour. I think we were there for 3 hours. And if I didn't have to go pick up my sons from school, we could have been there for another 3 hours. You are the most fascinating person to talk to. You are a wealth of information for people to learn from. And can I try on that ring again?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Because I was able to do that last time. And it's very heavy. It's a heavy ring. Okay, on that note, repeat your Instagram.
Nick Lowery 88 and then www.nicklowery.com. And I want to shout out my friend Christine Ely, who's a very proper British woman who has my mother's accent,
Okay.
who's helped me with my website and with my book. I'm excited because to
I
me,
can't wait for that book.
I hope that it's different because it's not
Naked.
just a sports
Naked
and alone
and
with
alone.
80,000 people.
With 80,000
you can
people.
find an extensive series of pictures and about 15 pages from the book at nicklowery.com.
Nick, always a pleasure. I appreciate
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Always. And you can follow us on Instagram at Nadine Bubeck. We will see you next time.
Now, with Nadine. Produced at Star Worldwide Networks.